working for a month in Switzerland at a hotel where I did everything from housekeeping to like being at the front desk, the room service. An internship at a smaller company, I personally feel is far better than a larger one. If you can't stop them, then help them. Two things that I felt that were lacking with my experience at Shabang.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Breaking Uneven podcast. We love to talk shop, uncover the beauty of failures, and play a few games. Today, we have Ashay Shah with us, the founder of Django Digital. From his college and internship days itself, Ashay was headed into the world of advertising and marketing. Out of college, he went straight into the A&M world at Shebang, where he paid his dues for just about 4 years before starting Django Digital. Side note, he also did a quick little internship in hotel management in Switzerland. So, Ashay, did we do justice to your introduction?
Yeah, hi, thanks for having me. You guys really have done your research, so I'm quite impressed that you all know so much about me.
We know as much about you as you put out on the internet.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. It's all updated on my LinkedIn, so yeah.
We love a good, well updated LinkedIn because it makes
Yeah,
our job much easier.
much easier. True, true, true.
Definitely. And we want to learn about your journey that's not on the internet so that we get to know your true journey.
Yeah,
But to get started, we have a quick little game for you to learn more about Django Digital.
So now you might know this because you've researched the podcast, but basically we're going to play the Twitter pitch challenge.
yeah.
Twitter is known for its 280 character limit on every tweet, which makes it a little difficult to convey your thoughts. Uh, it takes about 20 seconds to speak to 80 characters, and we're going to transfer that challenge to you, which is to explain to us Django Digital in 20 seconds. But it's not that easy. You also need to use one emoji and one hashtag in your tweet.
Got it, got it.
Got it?
Yeah,
Cool. So, whenever you're ready, I will start your stopwatch. Three,
cool.
2, 1, go.
Cool. So Django is basically a digital media agency that likes to work with challenger brands, but is kind of open ended in that sense, where it also works with a lot of uh, uh, already established brands, where a young workforce, mainly comprising of Gen Z and millennials. So our thoughts are super fresh, is what I like to believe, and we have something unique in terms of creative thinking that I don't think a lot of other agencies have. So my emoji would be money, the money flying, and my hashtag would be challenger, I guess, because I personally love working at challenger brands. Yeah.
Okay, so we've already understood the first thing about your personality. You're one of those people that likes to, create a whole thread of tweets because you went over 40 seconds.
Oh damn, my bad. But yeah, I am. I could be that person, although I don't use it as much. But yeah,
You don't use Twitter as much, that's why.
yeah.
No worries.
So, to get started with your journey, we must ask where did the Grand Swiss Hotel come into the picture? Like, how did you end up there?
So I think right after the 10th grade, I did a bunch of internships. I even interned with my father to understand if I can truly work with him for about 6 months. And I don't think I could work in his industry. I think as a partner, it would have been good fun to work with, but I just didn't see myself there. So I kind of started exploring a bunch of different industries. I thought I had an inclination towards hotel management. So therefore, I tried working for a month in Switzerland at a hotel where I did everything from housekeeping to like being at the front desk, the room service, to taking tours, to different places. It was a lot of fun. I think the experience was great. It shaped me a lot better, but I didn't see myself doing that. And through the course of the next 5 years, from the 10 to the till I graduated, I did a bunch of other internships. So I worked with Leo Burnett for a bit on the Marlboro program, the infamous Marlboro program. apart from that, I worked with a couple of other startups like Gyan Exchange, Soundtrot, which was in the music festival tourism space. Gyan Exchange was a platform for teachers and students. So I got, I got a lot of knowledge from these different internships, and I also understood what I liked and what I didn't like. And I started doing my advertising course in HR with Rajeshri ma'am. So I think that was sort of the tipping point where I realized that I think I kind of like advertising and marketing, and therefore I must pursue it more. So that's where it all started. And I think my first job was, uh, I think I believe that I was super lucky to have my first job at Shebang, because I saw growth that I wouldn't see anywhere else. And I saw leadership I wouldn't necessarily see anywhere else. So I was working very closely with the founders, and that kind of that kind of helped me take the next step, which was essentially Django.
Yeah, I think like the environment that you're in during internships and jobs are so important because it kind of defines like your next step or the trajectory of your career, really. And
Yeah,
you've mentioned like you've worked at multiple internships before like your first job or like before you started Django, and
yeah,
they've been either large organizations or smaller ones. So,
yeah.
can you tell us like what are the key differences between these internships and more when it is a large one versus a smaller company? Like, what
Yeah,
were the learnings that were different between the two?
yeah, absolutely. So I think um, an internship at a smaller company, I personally feel, is far better than a larger one, and I guess a lot of other people will agree with me. Simply because you have to, play a lot of roles, and therefore your learning curve is a lot steeper. So working at smaller companies made me more well-rounded. I got into a bit of everything. So it wasn't just marketing. It wasn't just cold calling or cold emailing. It was also understanding the business, servicing the customers that each of these companies had, and doing a lot of even understanding finance to a certain extent. So I think it was a superior experience. Working at a larger company was also fun because the team was a lot larger. But I feel that with a larger team, you're also kind of restricted in terms of how much you can do, and you'd normally see the not so glamorous work coming your way. So while you also see that at a startup, I just feel like it rather be not glamorous across multiple different touch points than it just being that one thing that you do, at a bigger company.
But what about the resources and exposure? Like, for example, at Leo Burnett, right? Maybe you wouldn't directly work with the CCO, but being under the leadership of such a large, CCO with a global name, plus clients that are multinationals. What about that exposure versus in a startup, a smaller organization, you're exposed to more, but let's say less of the world, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think you've got a fair point. I also think that it really matters who you're working with at this larger organization. So even if it means that you're not interacting with the CCO, but if your immediate superior is someone you gel with and is someone who really guides you and acts as your mentor, then I think, yeah, why not? I mean, um, that's great, but I'm not so sure if everyone has that opportunity. And I would still hands down recommend working at a smaller agency or a smaller startup where you're working directly with the founders who may have also worked at larger organizations. So indirectly you're kind of still getting that benefit of working at a smaller agency, but from with the lens of a larger company.
Interesting. Fair enough.
Yeah.
You mentioned, you know, potentially having a supervisor who can be your mentor. So, who has been your mentor in life, in your professional life?
I think in my professional life, I think that the two mentors I have. One is my father. I think he has really taught me financial discipline like no one else has or could have. So I think that aspect is super important in terms of running a business, also running your life, right? So I think that's a very important life skill that he has taught me. Apart from him, I'd also say that Harshil was and still is a mentor to me. So from all my internships and my work experience in general, um, I've worked closely with him, and he has sort of guided me in the right direction. He has, of course, um, told me what I can, where I can improve, and what I can do better. So I think I definitely would consider Harshil. Apart from that, yeah, of course, Akshay is also a great mentor to me. So I've worked very closely with him as well, and he has sort of helped me improve the operations part of the business. So I think that is again very important. So yeah, I think broadly I'd say three mentors so far. Um, and yeah, everything is important. I mean, all three of them are equally important to me. Yeah.
Having like mentors and stuff like that, like it's important because I think it gives you a third perspective as well, right? Like when you're going through something, it's an outside opinion on like what's going on. So like at
Yeah.
what point in like a problem situation would you like reach out to your mentors? Is it like
uh,
often, or do you like
hmm.
make up like the decision in terms of what you want to do and then see whether that works, or do you go out for advice? Like how does
Yeah.
it go?
Absolutely. So I think with mentors, most of the times they're obviously being very nice people in general, but I understand that, and I personally don't always like wasting their time by going to them with a problem. So I normally go with a solution that I feel is the right way for me and for the organization, and that's what we speak about, and we speak more about the solution and if it is an effective one or not. So I think that's the way I would typically approach problem solving with my mentors.
Nice. Yeah, fair enough. I think like that discussion is kind of important. As you said, you want to value people's time as well. So you're not like um just I guess venting about your problems, but more like
Yeah.
seeing whether that like works or not.
Yes, we went right after that conversation is over, but but yeah, that's secondary.
Fair enough. So then like yeah, moving on to your first job, which was at Shebang, and you speak highly of it. So
Yeah.
what was the moment in your time at Shebang that told you that you need to start a venture of your own?
There were a couple of reasons for that. So I think the first one was when Harshil spoke about entrepreneurship at my last year, during my last year at Shebang. But I had also kind of made up my mind a little before that, because my family is a family full of entrepreneurs. So my mom has her own business, my grandmom had her own business, so did my granddad, so does my father, so does my sister. So I don't think anyone has done a job per se, except for my sister, maybe for a bit, but everyone's gotten into entrepreneurship straight up. And I feel like I was sort of made of that. It was kind of like a value that I got from my family. So I think it stemmed from there. And then, this kind of strengthened it when we spoke about entrepreneurship at Shebang. Um, right after that, I spoke to one of my best friends who is also now my partner, Shivang. And we considered it over a period of a couple of months, I'd say 4 or 5 months. And that's how the journey began, essentially, which is where we said that, I think it's time for us to start our own thing. Even if it is, a small setup, it's possible to scale. We also felt the agency business at the time was ripe. It was kind of, uh, I mean, getting into it at that time was great, I feel. So all of these things kind of came together to culminate towards Django. And we were fortunate enough to also have the Shebang founders back us up, guide us, mentor us. So it was a no brainer after that.
We really need to get your family on this podcast and discuss
I
Yeah.
was just
entrepreneurship and
I was just saying that forget the family. I was gonna say that the my main takeaway from that entire point was we found our next three podcast guests. But um,
Absolutely, I'll hit them up and I'll ask them if they're up for it. Although they're all quite shy, but but
that's
yeah.
fine. Our format will put them at ease. You can it's quite chill, yeah. But you said that you had the backing and the mentorship of Harshal and Akshay for that matter. But how did that dynamic play out, right? Did you tell Harshal that hey, I want to do my own thing? Because it was technically also coming from a speech that he gave, a talk that he gave. So how transparent were you with him, and how did that entire thing play out?
Absolutely. I think that's one, that's one great thing about Harshal is that he's very open. He'll have a casual conversation about pretty much anything. So it did stem from the fact that I walked up to him one day and said that I want to do this. And his initial reaction was, yeah, okay, go for it. And tell me how I can help. So I think that's how that kind of started. And we kind of worked on how we will go about doing this, narrowed it down to a specific format of working, where we were very clear, right, that he has his own business to run and now that I will have my own. So everything from the time investment to how they will actually help us, um, and how often will they help us, and when will that continue till until we are self-sustainable, self-sustaining rather. So that format was cracked, and then it kind of just picked up from there. So yeah, that was, I think, a period of about 3 months in 2019 when I quit. And actually it started before I quit, and then once I quit, it kind of became more concrete over a period of time.
So then imagine that now we're 5 years into the future and you are giving a speech at Django Digital about entrepreneurship, and there's a young star that walks up to you and they say that, hey, Asha, I wanna venture out on my own and start something. How would you react? And what is the kind of yeah, how would you react and how would you deal with it? And this is, imagine that it's a star, right? It's someone that you want, you've loved, you've nurtured and trained.
I would be very happy for them. I mean, you can't stop anyone from doing what they want to do. So I would definitely extend support wherever possible. I also feel that, it would really depend on how much time I can also give. So we would, of course, crack that format, and then, but overall, I'd be more than happy to help. I mean, why not? Uh, if you can't stop them, then help them, right? So it makes sense.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think like nowadays a lot of people are being more supportive of uh having people like we had the founders of Haptic, one of the founders of Haptic on our podcast, and their entire culture was all about like helping people become entrepreneurs. So they were like, if people ever left Haptic, it was either to start something of their own or
Yeah.
they had like personal reasons. Like no one ever left for like a competitor, and that was the kind of culture they like had. So they were very supportive of people starting their own thing, but like the culture they had in place was important for them, for people like yeah, to nurture people into either becoming entrepreneurs or staying at the company full time. So I think that kind of culture is now becoming a little more common, and people around are adapting to that, because like traditional corporates will never be as supportive as you described, like Shebang and their
Yeah.
founders, like how should and all to be for you, or like just similarly how Swapan was with like his colleagues. So
Yeah.
I guess like when you decided to start something of your own and it was in a similar space as what Shebang is, like did like competitors or anything ever, like did you ever question that? Was that ever a reason where like you're like, oh, I shouldn't start something in this space because it might be saturated? Like what was your thinking at that point?
Yeah, of course. So I think if your question is about, what's, drawing that line between Shebang and Django, yeah, there were definitely rules to this game that we were playing. So there were things like poaching clients or
Yeah.
people was off the table. It was very clear that we are building Django, and what Django is has to be defined by the people we work with, and the clients we sort of bring on board ourselves.
Yeah.
While there is help, it has to be our vision and no one else's. So there was never that thought was never diluted, and it was always very very clear in terms of how we would operate and how they would operate. And that really helps also, right? I mean, we don't want to unnecessarily create any sort of rifts as such to to pause this entire larger thing that we are building. So yeah, there were definitely rules to the game, and at the time, Django was also very small. We were a team of, I think, what, five people at the start. In order to even win the kind of business that Shabang had at the time, was a long journey for us, and it is still a long journey for us. Um, uh, and we were very clear at the start that we want to focus on founder-led businesses. So thereby, our consumer was very different from Shabang's consumer. So there was like division as such.
Yeah, fair enough. That makes sense, especially given like you were working for them and then starting something in the same space. But
Yeah.
if it was like competitors in general, like not necessarily Shebang, but like just advertising agencies, what like made you want to create something of your own regard
Mhm.
instead of just working for another one?
Yeah, fair. I think the, the most important point, like I said, was doing my own business. I think that was one very important factor, that I wanted to do something of my own. While there was a lot of competition in the in the market, and it is ever growing. Right now you'll see a lot more competition in this segment, simply because the barrier to entry is low, and everyone knows social per se, so it's just about who does it better. There was competition, but I feel like the gap that we tend to is to work with uh, founders directly. I think that was the gap that we were trying to sort of fulfill. And when we work with founders directly as well, I feel like there's a whole lot of bureaucracy per se that isn't there. There's no dilution of vision as such. You're speaking to a human, and you're not speaking to someone else who has these whole bunch of rules and regulations as to how to do certain things. I'm not saying that is wrong. I'm saying that's also good. And there are certain companies where it does work with, but I personally liked working with founders more because it was more, I wouldn't say casual, but it was less formal, it was more direct. And it gave us the chance to do things that we could normally do with other companies per se.
Okay, interesting. So tell us one, from your time at Shebang. Now, see, there are companies in the world that have the best possible employee practices, and even then, there's bound to be some employee that's unhappy. It's just a consequence. But I'm sure, at your time at Shebang, you would have thought of something that you wish the company had but didn't. So give us an example of one of those things that you implemented at Django, because you now have that opportunity.
Mm, is a tough question.
No,
uh,
I mean, a large part of setting up your own shop is to bring in certain ideas on not just what the company does, but what you do for the company. So this one thing that you felt like needed a change, and you were able to do that.
I think I think one thing that I felt was two things that I felt that were lacking with my experience at Shabang, I wouldn't say that was lacking at Shabang per se, was my knowledge of media and influencers. So my partner Shivang comes from an influencer marketing background, and therefore the way he would approach influencers was very different from how a Shabang would normally do influencers, or rather how I would do influencers at Shabang. So I think that was one thing that we really do differently. Apart from that, my media understanding as well. So my third partner Vivek comes from Group M Mindshare. He used to work at Wavemaker, basically in New York, and prior to that, he used to work at Vayner Media. So his understanding of media was something that I never got at Shabang, because I was also a part of the solutions team, and while we did work closely with media and influencers, it I could have learned more. And starting Django, I feel like that completely changed. I know media so much better now. I feel very confident about it, and same thing goes for influencers.
What are certain practices you've built in so that your employees can also continue to learn? Because see, you get people that are talented. You're also nurturing talent in people. So I don't know, what is one thing that you do so that your employees can keep learning?
One thing that we do to so I would like to set some context here as well. In our 4 years, I'd say roughly 2 years were during the lockdown. So we started in 2019, and 2020 and 21 were the lockdown years per se. So we did not give as much importance to learning and development during those years, simply because it was very difficult to scale, to set that up, and at the same time to do your regular work that you are doing. So our talent strategy at that time was very different. It was, of course, hiring more experienced folks. Whereas now, I think since the last year and a half, we did have a learning and development officer for some time who would really focus on training. We built a couple of training modules that we do circulate to every all the freshers who do join us. Apart from that, we have town halls once in a while. But I personally feel that more than all of this, it's about just I wouldn't say throwing them in the deep end, but of course doing that and at the same time working together with them. Because even for me, there are a lot of things that are a new learning, right? So it's just working on it together. It's a real hands-on experience that I believe would shape you to be a better marketeer in the future.
Agreed. I think, like, in general as well, right? Like, uh, you want to challenge yourself, you want to learn new things throughout. That's what makes like the work exciting. Because I feel like once you get in a sense of a monotonous loop, it gets a little more like boring or like repetitive. So like I think overall in your industry it anyway is exciting because every project would be different. But like more than that, I think like you have the ability to then like challenge and throw yourself in the deep end and like learn through that entire process and keep it a little more exciting while you work on it. So that's cool. But you also said how you like how your co-founders had different strengths from you, and that's how you're like brought like like got together and started Django. So did you ever consider being like a solo entrepreneur, or was it always like doing it with other people?
I always thought about doing it with other people. I don't think, I mean, for me personally, I don't think that I'm always, for collaboration. I love collaborating. And therefore, I like doing things with other people because I understand that I may not possess all the knowledge in the world. And that's why collaboration is very, very important. That's how you learn and that's how you grow. So even before I thought about starting Django, I would always consult my best friends and understand if they were onto something else, onto another business idea, if there's something that we could do together. That's what I felt was very important. in starting Django, the spirit of collaboration.
100%. I think like working with people is like definitely more exciting than like just being yourself on your own. But so are your co-founders then like really close friends?
So my co-founders are actually, we were from the same school, but we weren't really friends in school. We became friends during college, and yeah, we're all pretty tight. We're all best friends. We've been hanging out since a while, doing a bunch of different internships together separately, and then we all went into our own different paths. Um, yeah, and came together eventually. But yeah, it's good to have a friend working with you because you get to share the joys and the failures. um, there is someone with you at every step, so I think it's a good support system per se.
In the past, we've had friends turned co-founders slash co-founders turned friends, etc. on the podcast, and we always ask them, what is your kind of conflict resolution method when it comes to friendship versus co-founder? And tell us one story where it went bad. It was not in a good state. I'm sure there has to be one.
Oh God. uh, yeah, I get where you're coming from. I think this is a common. I mean, my parents, kept telling me that you should never get into business with your friends because you never know what might happen and your friendship will be ruined. Like, will be ruined. There is no if. Like, it will happen. So it's definitely something that we keep thinking about. Um, we also understand how we should approach each other, right? So um, I'd say our conflict resolution game is on point. I mean, there are things that one person may not like, but at the end of the day, it's very autonomous. Like, if you feel this is the right direction for Django, then please go ahead and execute it yourself. And if we both agree on it, then we both work on it together. In that sense, it is very autonomous. We don't like shutting down ideas immediately because there might be potential that I may not know of or that Shivang or Vivek may not know of. So in that sense, it is autonomous. There were you asked me one time where it kind of got a little tricky. Uh, I'm thinking about this, but I think it's yeah. So I'll tell you what. So there was this one brand that I really wanted to get on board, but the brand that I want to get on board was not aligning with the personal values of my partner, and it wasn't really it didn't really it wasn't something that was off per se in the way we resolved it, but it was something that we disagreed upon, and eventually one of us has to sort of concede and give in, right? So I think that was one place where it was a little tricky, but eventually, I mean, you have to kind of work together and resolve it and get over it. So yeah.
Cool. Interesting.
Once y'all decided to become like co-founders, was there like a dynamic change in your like friendship or like the co-founder relationship?
Yeah, there was a change in the sense that we just don't chill together as much anymore as we used to, simply because we see each other so much at office. So, and also how I am as a person, right? I don't like to go out anymore, so I'm usually holed up in my house, uh, doing what I do best, which is either lazing or on my system, just researching, watching videos, and stuff like that. But yeah, there will always be that slight change in dynamics. So it's not like we don't hang together apart from work. We do it, but it has become a lot lesser. And also, when you're starting your own thing, right, it's very different from when you were friends earlier, when you were working, because there isn't as much responsibility when you are doing a job, and you have more free time to to chill together, and you're also not seeing each other all the time.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, I was just interested to know like whether like how to navigate that like dynamic change or like just like yeah, what the process is. As like Anuj mentioned, like we've had like a lot of founders that that became co-founders with their friends and things like that. And as like your parents said, I guess like I was also of the opinion to never like mix like business or pleasure. So it's always like interesting to see because funny enough, like so Anuj and I were friends before we started the podcast, but we also had like a different business which we also did with friends. So the
Oh,
two, I guess, any entrepreneurial stints I've had has been with friends. So it's just like funny to see. But yeah.
nice, nice. Are you guys liking working with each other, and how do you all resolve your conflict?
No, I mean, from I guess my perspective, I do obviously enjoy working together and stuff. And then, like as you said, there's always it's fun to have someone else bounce off ideas with.
Yeah,
So we definitely challenge each other's ideas quite a bit because a lot of times we do come from like different perspectives. So it's always interesting to see what the other person thinks and the reasoning for that. And like, and again, at the end of the day, it's like whatever's the best for the podcast is what we want to do, right? Because like that's
yeah,
the goal in mind. So yeah, similar to I guess what you said in the sense that at the end of the day, it's what's best for the podcast. But yeah, I think like one thing that we do generally is like list pros and cons for our idea. Like let like we each fight for
nice.
our idea and then see like so if
What
I
out?
know that he's very like passionate about that and he's listed and fought for his idea well enough, then I would concede if I think that like okay, it makes sense. But the same
Yeah.
way, like I think he does that when I really fight for a particular idea as well. So that's what we do. But yeah, Anuj, any other
No,
conflict
I think
resolution?
as as close friends and everything, um, it can go one of two ways, right? There are times because you know your close friends' biggest strengths and weaknesses. It could be that in business those things either annoy you or you just know too much about them personally
Mm,
uh, to be able to take an objective view towards the business and an objective view towards what they are doing for the business
yeah,
versus other times when it works out, which is when you feel like you know their strengths and weaknesses and they know yours, and you kind of play to each other's strengths and let go of each other's weaknesses, which is I think the dynamic that Janvi and I have now is we know what each other's strengths are and where to let go in terms of weaknesses. So I think that's what for me is a deciding factor as to whether it would work out or wouldn't. And there's no right or wrong. It's just
yeah.
Yeah.
does it happen or does it not happen?
Yeah, I think that's essentially what I also meant when I said autonomy, right? I think that's
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. I think that's important. That's very important.
Core of it is
And it
trust. Do
definitely
you trust?
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
And it definitely takes time as well, right? Like to come to like this situation, at least for me, like there was a lot of like learnings that you have to figure out like how to work with the person as well. And that can be either a friend or not. But I think when it comes to a friend, it's a little more like um tricky and like it's not like you don't get agitated with the person because like sometimes it's just frustrating to like be like, hey, this is this like I was actually talking to one of our other like co from our previous stint and he was like during that time the number of times I must have hated you like it's not even and like we both were like yeah there was frustration at like points because when you don't like understand each other properly and then you're like okay but like we're also friends but it's like yeah
yeah,
so navigating that definitely gets like tricky but like you figure that out through the process
yeah.
and I think yeah hopefully it like doesn't ruin the friendship but I think that's like depending on who you work with.
For sure, for sure. I think again, just establishing that that line between work and fun is very important. Like what you do after work is has nothing to do with work. So
Yeah.
as long as that is that is something that's accepted by everyone, then I think you'll have a great relationship with your friends who are also partners.
Cool. So now let's go into your challenges or your achievements with Django. We play this game called Two Lies, One Truth, uh, where the idea is that you give us three statements, amongst which One is a true big moment, and two are false statements. It could be challenges, achievements, or a mix of both. That's up to you. We have to try and guess which is the truth.
Cool, I have them ready. I think it's fairly easy for you all to figure this out, but I'll go for it. So
Good.
the first one is Django doesn't believe in awards. The second one is Django will soon start working with larger brands. And the third one is Django doesn't have a coffee machine.
Oh, you shouldn't have said that this was easy for us, because now if I get it wrong, it's just embarrassing. Um,
These are two lies and one truth.
Yeah, yeah. Two lies and one truth.
I think the second one is definitely a lie. Like they want to work with larger organizations,
I'm
because
gonna
I
go
think it's
with
more founder, like it's difficult to work with the founder when it's like a larger organization. I think so. I would cancel that. So mine's between the first and the third.
I can actually even cheat on this, but I'll choose the truth.
No, 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 no cheating, huh, guys? You'll have to answer in the next 10 seconds. Okay, just
Oh,
tell me
okay.
the
I'm
truth.
gonna go with option one. I'm gonna go with option one. Django doesn't believe in awards.
That's the truth.
I'd
Yeah,
say
I think
that's the
even I'm gonna
truth.
go for that. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so basically, I'll go point by point. So Django doesn't believe in awards. I'd say that is a lie because I mean it's kind of like we do believe in awards, but we also know that it's not a measure of success per se.
Okay.
So I think that's definitely a lie. uh, Django doesn't have a coffee machine is also a lie. I mean it's
Oh, okay.
we do have a coffee machine, and Django will soon start working with larger brands is uh, yeah, the truth.
Okay. So, like in the larger brand, like, is the
Hmm.
intention still to work with the founder?
So I think that will never go away, but I feel like if we want to grow, um,
Yeah.
it's inevitable because this this space of working with just founder-led businesses or startups, uh, from a business lens, is not the most sustainable, and
Yeah.
therefore we feel that we have to kind of go in that direction.
In
Yeah.
the
Fair enough.
agency model, your true margin lies with larger brands, I
Yeah,
suppose.
definitely.
Yeah.
But there's also more. There's definitely that fun element in working with a smaller brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Larger ones are the ones that have the budget as well, right? Like
Yeah,
to play around.
ex-
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah. No. That. So see, I told you shouldn't have said that was easy. But yeah, moving on to our next challenge. Let's play red flags. We're gonna give you three hypothetical situations composed of two things that are going great and one that's not so great, which is the red flag. Assume that these statements are true for you, and we've adapted this for you and Django. And then you have to pick which one of these situations you would rather be in and tell us why. So, situation one, Django Digital has grown to 500 employees. You're on your way to do a turnover of 500 crores next year, but one of your co-founder decides to leave the company. Situation two, Django Digital has just opened a beautiful new office. You are in the process of acquiring a killer new agency, but your clients start to drop off and you can't tell why. Situation three, Django Digital's campaigns are winning awards globally. You have just brought on three crucial investor advisors, but your employee satisfaction rate has dropped significantly in the last year. These are your three situations. Which one would you rather be in?
Okay. Wow, this is a tough one. But I'd say I'd be in the third situation. I feel and I'll tell you why also. I personally don't want to grow to a 500 employee company ever, because I feel like or to reach a turnover of 500 crores in any year, any given year, because that's not the size we want to go after. And we're not chasing scale uh, at the moment, at least, or we've never set out with the vision to chase that kind of scale. So I would never be in situation one. Situation two is, again, I feel like why I didn't choose situation two is because, simply because, the reason for you to not know why your clients are dropping off is scary, right? Because there's, I feel like that is very important for someone to understand why the agency is working or not. So that red flag is a big red flag to me. Situation three is still manageable, right? So you are doing good work. Okay, you have brought three new crucial investors, advisors, right? So there is going to be more solid mentorship. There's going to be more guidance. I think that is very important because these people may also come with a lot of experience that Django necessarily doesn't have. Like I said, we are a fairly young agency. Our average age is probably 24 or 25. So the one thing that we lack in this anyway young industry is experience. So I think that will really help strengthen that. The red flag is, of course, very very important. Employee satisfaction rate uh, is something that every agency is striving to do better at. I still think that that is manageable, wherein you do have conversations with these different people to understand what is it that they want. So why I chose situation 3 is also because I feel that that red flag is the most manageable one out of all of the other situations. And yeah, of course, the green flags may say, I already told you, I situation one is not something that I aspire to be, personally, at least.
That's very interesting in the sense that scale is something that you're not, or this kind of scale is something that you're not focusing on. So, like, what would be your main focus then? Like, what is something that you are looking to grow?
I think we just want to do. I think we just want to do different work, and most of the times we don't get the opportunity, given the various dynamics, and also because we are also scaling up, so it kind of takes time to get there. So for me at least, I feel like we want to do creatively satisfying work, which doesn't mean that we win awards, but it means that the clients are happy, and there is a positive outcome from it. So I think that's how I look at at least success for Django.
Yeah, that's really cool in the sense that it's very rare when we play this game that like people switch our green flags to be red flags. It's happened, but it's rare in the sense that a lot of, like, for the flags to not be as attractive, and it's always interesting to see that more
Yeah,
because it, like, you learn about the founders thinking, right? Like, why is that not necessarily
yeah,
what is traditionally wanted? Why is that not
yeah,
something that you're working towards? So
for
it's
sure.
cool how you're like breaking that model.
Thanks.
I think it makes another point, which is what is it that the industry, media, etc. capture, right? They capture, "Oh, this company's at this much turnover, this company now has these many employees." They of course capture awards as well, which is one of your goals, but it's not one of your main goals. As you said, it's important, but it's not a measure of true success. So it's more about what success is to the outside world. Is in at least what we've seen through red flags is quite rarely what success is to a founder. To a founder, success is purely, listen, this was my vision, so whatever the outside world might say or do, this is still what I'm working towards. I don't care about the headlines. So it's just always fun to see where that stems from.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's also, I mean, why one of the reasons why, and we keep talking amongst each other, like my founders and I, my co-founders and I, where we talk about operating at a certain scale and doing 500 crores of business annually is no joke per se. So even if you want to do 100 crores, there's so much that goes behind it. And I also highly value my work life balance. And I love my Saturdays and Sundays to myself. So I don't see that happening if you're scaling so fast and at such a scale. And I think any founder who wants to scale that fast will say that, or rather will have that hustle mentality, which is not to say that we don't have it, we do, but it's not something that we ever think about as much. Like, we don't want to keep going at it. We want, like, a good life to lead, and at least I want a good life to lead and have that work life balance, and also enjoy what I'm doing.
Fair enough. Cool. Let's go to our last segment, which is the rapid fire. Self explanatory. Quick questions, quick answers.
Cool.
And we'll start now. So, how many days of leave have you taken in the last year?
uh about 25.
Very healthy. Good. So, you're already
Mm,
working towards the work
yeah, in
life
the last year,
balance.
about 25, yeah, leaves.
Not bad, not bad.
Yeah, you could actually,
How?
you could say, I mean, 20 leaves, because there's always been work on holidays. Uh, but yeah, it's healthy. It's not like I've
It's still
there's a
quite healthy,
deficit.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
How many clients did you already have before you started Django Digital?
Uh, None, no
Interesting.
clients.
The reason why I ask that is because generally a lot of agency founders have
Yeah,
probably already found a few clients before they start.
yeah,
It's kind of like a risk mitigating
correct,
factor.
correct. Yeah,
Interesting.
but for us, none. Yeah.
What was your biggest sacrifice to make Django Digital possible?
My biggest sacrifice. So I'd say, uh, at the start, my personal time. There was a lot of investment in Django, in terms of how much time my partners and I put in. So yeah, I would say that.
Fair enough. What has been your favorite project with Django Digital till date?
Uh, I'll name a few. One is Society Tea, because I love the content that we do for them, and I love working with the founders and the marketing team over there. The second one is this brand called Spike, which is a hard seltzer brand that we launched recently, and we've done some very different work for them, which you wouldn't normally see. So I was kind of proud of that. So I'd say these two brands so far I've enjoyed working with.
Fair enough. What was your most embarrassing moment ever at the office?
Uh, Last year at the offsite, I'm terrible at public speaking. I was very nervous and it was very evident. So I'd say that moment was a little embarrassing for me, but I'm kind of working on myself to get there eventually. And also because it was the first time I met all 75 people in one place. Prior to that, there was the lockdown and we didn't really get the chance to meet everyone. So yeah,
I mean, it's a good place to showcase your vulnerabilities amongst your own
yeah,
people. It also tells your employees that listen, even I'm human only. So
yeah,
I think that's awesome.
yeah.
Um, one time that you felt like you let Django Digital down.
I think there was one client that I really wanted to retain, and it just wasn't possible, no matter how much I tried. And I feel, and that was a very big client for us. So it was a massive drop in revenue that year. So I felt that I kind of let Django down at that time, um, where I couldn't, stop them from going, essentially.
Interesting. Waffles or pancakes?
Pancakes,
Pancakes. iPads or notebooks?
iPads,
iPads. What is the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning?
coffee,
Threads or Twitter?
threads.
Favorite and your favorite social media
I'm only
otherwise.
saying threads because I don't use Twitter much.
You know,
If I have to choose it by virtue of, like, the founder, then I would definitely choose Twitter, because I really like Elon, Elon Bhaiya. uh,
and what's your favorite social media otherwise?
I have I'd say Instagram, but I don't use it much personally. I barely post. I use it more to consume content. Um, uh, but now I actually have started liking YouTube a lot more because it's far more informative, the shorts and the long form. So I spend most of my time on YouTube now.
Interesting. We have. I don't think we've had YouTube as an answer
Yeah.
before. Interesting. So anyway, that concludes the rapid fire segment, bringing us almost to the end of our conversation. At the end of our conversation, we ask every guest to ask a question for our next guest. So first,
Okay.
we'll be asking you your question,
Okay.
um, and then you'll be asking a question to our next guest.
Nice.
Neither knows who is who. So
Okay.
your question from our previous guest is:
What's the meaning of life according to you?
Wow, that's deep.
I
Uh,
feel like we went into this existential space about 2 episodes ago, and we're still wailing off of that.
uh, what is life? Life is. I mean, it's such a tough question. What is life? And I'm too young to answer it. I feel, but I feel like life is what you make of it. You just you're living life for what, like, very short period of time. So just enjoy yourself. I feel that is and I personally am a, I would like to say, a happy-go-lucky person, as some of my other tuition teachers have described me as well. So I like enjoying life. And that's what I feel life is all about, having fun.
Can we just focus on the fact that you define yourself not by what your parents or your friends or your colleagues say, but what your tuition teachers say?
And there was this one tutor I had who was super fun. His name is Parashar. Uh, I don't know if you guys know or have heard of him. He's quite famous in South Bombay, but I really respected him. Actually, you could say he was one of my mentors back in school as well. Um, and he would keep telling me, "You're a very happy-go-lucky guy," and it's a great thing. But it could also, it could also be a problem later down. So I've always remembered that.
Interesting. Your T-shirt also says you're a happy-go-lucky guy, so it's good. That's your entire vibe.
I normally wear black, but this I have a few like this when I.
I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad. But yeah, that's the end of our conversation. Asha,
Great.
thank you so much for coming on board. It was an absolute pleasure having you, and I think a very fun conversation.
Yeah, it was super fun. Thanks for having me. Like I said, this is my second podcast, but it was a good one. Like, I felt comfortable. I wasn't, feeling awkward at any point. So that's a good sign. I think I should do more podcasts now.
Perfect. Yeah. And hopefully we got things on the internet now that weren't already there. So that should be
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, for sure.
Well, it also
But yeah,
means since
thank
you
you so much.
enjoyed the experience, you will recommend us to your father, mother, and sister.
Done, done.